You know, the other day I had to get my passport renewed. And when I went into the passport office, the guy who was running the metal detector recognized me. And he Googled me. And he said, and he came in and saw me and said, "I see that you said that if Hillary's elected, you're going to move to another country." And I said, "I'm not admitting that to the passport office." And then the local head of the passport office, the coordinator for that office, was very kind. She came out, she said hello, we chatted for a bit, and I wanted to get her email address so, you know, if I had a problem, I could go directly to the top there. And she began to give it to me, gave me her first initial and her last name, @ and I said, "Stop, do you use the State Department email server?" Well, I want to bring you a bold proposal for judicial reform in the United States. Literacy tests for Supreme Court justices. I believe they have to know how to read. They have to know that when a law says through state exchanges, it doesn't say through federal exchanges. So let's make, I know that they don't read the Bible because, you know, that would be expecting too much, and they obviously don't. But at least they can read the law. But that's a change we need to make. So listen, you've been listening all summit to statements and speeches by wonderful candidates who are running for president. And I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about how we get there, how we win this election. People used to ask me, "Why are you so down on Hillary?" And I had to attempt the difficult task of explaining to them that she is fundamentally corrupt, that she is fundamentally deceitful, that when she says something, the truth is not necessarily a preferred option, it's just one of a number she can choose depending on the circumstances of the moment, and so on and so on. But now I don't have to do that anymore. I just say, "Look, you're finally seeing what I've sought for 20 years. So I don't have to explain that to anyone. But there is one thing that's new. When I worked for Bill Clinton, Bill and to a great extent Hillary wanted money, but they wanted it to achieve power. Now they want power in order to make money. Big difference in their priorities and everything. I used to think that if Hillary were elected, there would be a kind of Nixonian rush for wealth. Now it's obvious that that's what's going to happen, and there's a very credible argument that that's what she's all about anyway, that that's what this candidacy is all about, what the career is all about. Because otherwise, why would they have taken the chances on this flimsy blackmail scheme that they were running out of the State Department, of doing favors for people in return for contributions to the Clinton Foundation and in return for speaking fees paid directly in effect to Hillary. You know, in 1797, the United States, President Adams, sent some negotiators to France to try to stop the naval war that was going on between the U.S. and France, where our shipping was getting sunk. And Talleyrand was the French foreign minister. And he said, "I will only meet with you if you pay me a bribe." And they specified the amounts of the bribe, and the Americans said, "Go to hell, we're not going to do that." And they told the people in America that they had been solicited for a bribe. And everybody demonstrated millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute. Well, will someone tell me what is the difference between Hillary Clinton and Talleyrand? But let's talk about the how we get there about the election. If the Republican Party wins every state that Mitt Romney won, they get about 220 electoral votes, more or less. They're about 70 or 80 short. Then, if they win, we lost the election by 3 points nationally in the popular vote. Then the next state is Florida, which we lost by 0.9%. So that's fairly easily within our grasp. If our national vote share goes up by about a point, we probably carry Florida. And we lost Ohio by 1.5 points. And if our vote share goes up by 1.5 points, we probably carry both Florida and Ohio, totally within reach. And if that were the case, we would still be 19 electoral votes short, and we would have lost the popular vote by 1.5 points. How do we get the remaining 19 electoral votes? They are in New Hampshire, 4, Pennsylvania, I think about 25, Virginia, I think is about 12, Wisconsin is 10, Iowa is 7 or 8, Colorado, I think, is 7, am I right? Yeah. What? 9? And it changes each year when I go to the summit. and a bunch of other smaller states, but there are about 7 or 8 states there that we would have to win in order to get over the 273 mark. And the problem is that every single one of them went for Obama by at least 4.5 points. So our national vote total would have to go up by 4.5 points to have a good shot at carrying those states. Now, sometimes you can do much better in a state or much worse in a state than you do nationally. But for the most part, it comes out pretty close. So we not only have to win the popular vote, we have to win the popular vote by a lot. Basically, what it means is we have got to win the election of 2016 by the same margin with which we won the election of 2004. It has to be, in effect, a wipeout for us to be able to do that. And that's daunting, that's difficult, and that's something that absolutely the epicenter of that movement is right here in Colorado. There are only 4 states in America, basically, that have become more Republican over the last few years, and Colorado leads the list. There's also Wisconsin, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And if you need any more incentive, control of the U.S. Senate is likely to come down to whether or not we can defeat Michael Bennet from Colorado. It was here that I first met Cory Gardner when he was running for Congress, and gave him advice over the years. But I know to take you guys very seriously, and you need to find a Cory Bennet somewhere in here to go take on Michael Bennet. Not Michael, to take on Michael Bennet, you need a Cory Gardner somewhere around here. Now, let's talk about the strategy we need to win, and then let's talk about the candidates with that strategy in mind. I'm not for any candidates, so this analysis is pretty impartial, not dispassionate, but impartial. The Democratic Party survives now based on identity politics, which is don't look out the window at what the candidate is saying. Look in the mirror, see who you are, and that tells you who to vote for. If the face looking back at you in the mirror is that of a Latin American, an African American, Hispanic American, African American, gay, a single mother, somebody under 25, the odds are, a union member, the odds are that that vote is going to go Democratic. The overwhelming odds are. And it's really identity politics. Tell me who I am, and therefore I'll tell you who to vote for. And that is a very dangerous thing in our country, and it tends to create a situation in which we're largely disenfranchised, because very few of us fit that profile. We're in the mirror to come back at us to tell us we can vote Republican. But the way to defeat identity politics is to cut across the identities with issues. Somebody asked me, when will the Republicans start carrying the Latino vote? And I said, when it's no longer called that. And you... So when you poll Latinos in the United States, the number 1 issue they cite is employment. The number 2 issue is education. The number 3 issue is crime. And the number 4 issue is immigration. Number 4. But the Republicans need to put the first three in play. They need to illustrate to the Latino vote, to the African American vote, to the single mother vote, that they are the party that can deliver on those other issues, rather than trying to mitigate and moderate our advocacy of the one issue the Democrats use. The answer is not to back down on immigration, but to stand up on education. And the key thing to do here is to make the Democratic Party choose between its sponsors and its voters. The teachers' union runs the Democratic Party. It funds it and it runs it. So if we have a candidate, and this is a tremendous advantage of Governor Walker, who can run and say the problem with education in this country are the teachers' union, the rules, incompetent teachers who we can't fire, great teachers who we can't pay a lot to under merit pay, the straitjacket control the unions have over education, we can take the education issue away from the Democratic Party. Every issue has a built-in spin to it, a built-in tilt. Crime is a Republican issue. Taxes is a Republican issue. Defense is a Republican issue. Environment is a Democratic issue. Immigration, environment is a Democratic issue. Elderly is a Democratic issue. Education is a Democratic issue. But you can, if you work hard enough, take some of those issues away from the Democratic Party and use them to shatter the cohesion within each of these identity politics groups. And the issue that we can use to do that is the idea of who runs the schools: the parents, Washington, the unions, or you. I think the Republican Party should wage this campaign on the issue of being pro-choice, not on abortion, but on education. Then you look at people under 25, young people. The number one issue that concerns them is student loans and the lack of job opportunities and the incredible burden that they graduate with. It's like buying a house, taking out a mortgage, but you don't have a house. And the impact of that is just enormous. It has crippled an entire generation. And if you ask yourself, why is demand not more robust in our economy? That's why. We're saddling those who are forming households, who should be buying cars and buying homes, with debt payment instead. Now, the Democratic approach to that is forgive the debt, give you a chance to work it off by indenturing yourself for 10 years to a job you don't particularly want, but which we want you to have. The Republican approach is very different. It's embodied in a bill sponsored by Mike Lee, senator from Utah, which is a reform of the accreditation system for colleges. Right now, you basically cannot get accredited if you're an online university, because the faculty unions are so powerful that their commitment to 9-hour work weeks and brick-and-mortar schools with high tuitions has such a stranglehold over the education system and the higher education accreditation system that a kid has no choice but to go through that and pay these outrageous tuitions. And the reason the tuitions are outrageous is because of the subsidy. It's just like years ago, they realized the more roads you build, the more cars and traffic you're going to have. Well, the higher your student loan rates go, the more comprehensive that payment is, the higher the tuitions are going to go, the higher the indebtedness will go. You can use that issue to shatter the unity of the vote of the under 25 population and to really cut it across, and particularly because the Democrats are running the student loan program and have centered it in the government. By the way, almost nobody knows this, but about $80 million a year of student loan repayment is earmarked to pay for Obamacare, taken right off the top in the money that students repay in their student loans. That wouldn't be very popular if you publicized that and got people to know it. So in a host of ways with each of these constituencies, we can shatter the cohesion of these identity politics groups. And we can use issues to get our share of those votes and take votes away from them. The second thing we have to do is to make this a campaign about people, not only a campaign about issues or ethnicity. And here we have the perfect foil in Hillary Clinton. You can endlessly run negative ads on Hillary, and don't worry about running out of material she makes new every day. And what she doesn't make new are new cover-ups of old material. And the capacity to run against her is enormous. There's one word that was recently used in a very good public opinion poll. First time I've ever seen that word used in politics. Authenticity. I mean, who thinks Hillary Clinton is authentic? Who thinks that the accent she assumes and the persona she assumes reflect anything but the opportunism of the moment? And when you can convince voters that your opponent will say anything to get elected, the weather vane, the windsurfing ad for Kerry, you strip him or her of their capacity for advocacy. They can no longer say what they would do as president because nobody believes them, because they know that 5 minutes later they'll say something else. Hillary cannot go out there now and attack the trade agreement because everybody knows that she supported it. And if she does attack it, nobody's going to take that seriously. She can't go out now and defend the individual mandate in health care when the basis of her challenge to Obama's health care proposals in 2012 was her opposition to the individual mandate and support of single payer. But the way to run against Hillary is to make her the issue, not to let yourself become the issue. Make her the issue, and make her trip and slide and fall over all of the stuff she said before and all of the cover-ups and all of the effort she's had to stop things from coming to the surface. Now, to do that, you need to have a candidate who understands how to win that electronic dialogue over television and over the internet and over social media. If you look at the Romney campaign, the big reason that Romney lost, other than the hurricane and Christie, was that he never answered the Bain Capital charges. When Obama told people that Bain Capital was vulture capitalism, not venture capitalism, people bought into it after 4 months of unopposed advertising on that theme, and Romney never set up a flag to debunk it, to say, look, you're talking about outsourcing? Well, if I didn't outsource, I'd have to close this company down, and 1,000 Americans would lose their jobs. And he could have explained that. He could have made people understand that and make that issue backfire. He could have put on the air people who kept their jobs because Bain Capital took a company that was failing and made it succeed. There were numerous stories like that. He could have done that, but he didn't, because he didn't understand the give and take of electronic dialogue. Now, one of the big reasons Bill Clinton was able to win the presidency is that he ran for office, statewide office, in roughly 15 different elections before he first ran for president. In 78, he had a primary, a runoff, and a general. In 80, he had a primary and a general. In 82, he had a primary, a runoff, and a general. In 84, he had all three. And these were all closely fought elections because the teachers' union opposed him because he was for education reform. Back then, so was Hillary. And they were very competitive, closely fought engagements. And the result is that Bill Clinton is a master at the give and take of charge and rebuttal and counterpunch. And the motto we used to have between us was never sleep under the same roof with an unanswered negative attack. And Romney wouldn't answer. He would never answer. He would never follow the charge into the gutter and answer it and get rid of it. And that inability, that inexperience with this kind of thing is the leading failing of inexperienced political candidates. And it makes me very worried, frankly, about sending out a novice to tackle Hillary Clinton. I wouldn't want to take someone out of the Golden Gloves ring and send him in against Muhammad Ali. And there is nobody more skilled at that kind of dialogue than Hillary. A lot of it I taught her myself. and she's very good at that back and forth, back and forth. And you need candidates who are able to do that. So in selecting your Republican candidate for president, I would bid you to look at it as if the person is auditioning for the job of being your candidate for president in tackling Hillary Clinton. And look at their qualifications for that job. Don't just look at who'll be a great president. Don't just look at who says the right things or who seems to be a fresh face. Look at the track record. See if they know how to win this kind of fight. Because if you don't, you're going to lose it. Look at how we were losing in Iraq until we got a hold of Petraeus, who taught us how to win. And with the same resources, the same opponent, and the same country, he turned it around and made it work. That's what we need in this political campaign. And that's the third ingredient. The first is to break up these ethnic voting blocks by using issues. Pulverize them with issues until they break up. The second is to make the campaign about Hillary Clinton. Make her the issue and make her defend herself in an ad hominem way. And thirdly, be prepared for the give and take. Look forward to it, of attack, rebuttal, and then counterpunch. Now, before I leave, let me just spend a second on the Senate races. There's a myth that the Republicans are going to lose the Senate. I don't think so. In fact, I don't really even see how it's possible for the Republicans to lose the Senate. I think there are two seats the Democrats now hold that we have a very good chance of winning. One is Harry Reid. Who is getting out of Dodge just in time, one step ahead of the sheriff. And the other is Michael Bennet. He won by the narrowest of margins because he faced one of the worst campaigns run by an opponent in recent history. And I would just caution those who look at voting for an ingenue to run. They make mistakes like I forgot his name, like Buck made, and they end up with results that are similar. The whole control of the Senate may again come down to Colorado. There are three seats we now hold that we might lose. The toughest one will be Illinois, where Mark Kirk, despite leading the charge on sanctions against Iran, may lose that seat. It's a thoroughly, thoroughly blue state, never should have gotten elected in the first place, and we don't know what's going to happen, but he could win. And the other two seats that are in peril are Wisconsin, where Ron Johnson is running for re-election, a solid conservative, done a fabulous job as senator. But on the other hand, it is a very blue state. But you look at what Walker's been able to achieve there, and particularly if he were to be the nominee, we would have an excellent chance in Wisconsin, which would help Johnson as well as the party as a whole. And then there's Florida, where Rubio is giving up the seat, and nobody can predict what's going to happen in Florida. It's a 50-50 proposition, as Scott, who got elected by, I think, 5 votes, can tell you that it really could go either way. So 2 Republican seats, 3 Republican seats, and 2 Democratic seats that I think are really in play. If we lost them all, we would still keep control of the Senate if we won the White House. But we're not going to lose them all. And there are a whole host of other seats that people are looking at that we're not going to lose. We're not going to lose Indiana. We're not going to lose, I have a list of them, I forget, but there are a whole bunch of seats where the Republicans are supposed to be losing, but won't, because I think we'll carry those states. So look, the important thing to do here is to make sure you are nominating the best candidate you can for going up against the toughest opponent you've ever had. For all of those negatives that she has, focus on one fact. She's still standing. She's still alive. She's still polling fairly well. That's how tough an opponent she is. That's how good she is at slipping a punch. That's how good she is at misrepresenting her record to clean it up. And you better send a top-flight challenger to meet her and to beat her. Thank you.